Welcome into AU Nation. I'm your host, Evan Blank, here to bring you the latest opinions from your very own student media. Joining me today first is Kristin Burton from Eagle Eye TV. She is the Assistant Sports Director and Sports Reporter covering various sporting events for Eagle Eye TV. Kristin, how are you today?
I'm doing quite well today, Evan. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you. Next up is Jahlani Baptiste. He is a WEGL 91.1 FM sports analyst that hosts a show called the Lunch Hour Special. Jahlani, how are you doing today?
Just living the dream, Evan.
All right, good to hear. I like that. And last but certainly not least, we have Sam Butler. He is the sports editor for the Auburn Plainsman. You can read all of his stories online at theplainsman.com. Sam, how are you doing today?
Can't complain, Evan. Thanks for asking.
I'm glad. All right, thank you for joining us today. Now we move to our first topic. In the world of NCAA football, Auburn football, what does Auburn's 26-10 win over number 19 Texas A&M mean for their season? Kristin, start us off.
I mean, it's hard to say. We definitely stepped it up this past weekend with our defense against Texas A&M. Muschamp said this is probably one of the best defense they've had all year, but at the same time, what it means for the rest of the season, I mean, one more win, we might be bowl eligible, but, it's kind of hard to say because we've had a rough start, and this far into the season, it's kind of hard to come back from that.
Jahlani?
I think this was a very big win for us. Like Kristin said, it gave us our fifth win that was in question. They didn't know if we were going to make it to a bowl eligibility. But with that Idaho game still on schedule, we know we at least get 6 wins. It's good for the team for momentum moving forward. We had Jeremy Johnson come in and replace Sean White, who played because he had injury. That'll help us build for the future. The team looked really good. It looked, like Kristin said, it's one of the best defensive games we've had all season. Jeremy Johnson started off really sharp. My little quarterback controversy moving forward since Jeremy Johnson played so well. But I think it was a big game that the team really needed.
Sam?
I think you guys really hit the nail on the head there. Like you said, they needed this win to get bowl eligible. They had to beat either Texas A&M, Georgia, or Alabama on top of the Idaho game. And now that they've beaten Texas A&M, all they have to do is wrap up that pretty weak Idaho team, and they're bowl eligible. And in all likelihood, they're going to go to a lower tier bowl, but the team has said, and Gus has said repeatedly, that that's what they're shooting for. They wanted to go to a bowl this season. They're finally there, and I think, like you guys said, this was the first game that really put offense and defense together, where they really excelled in both phases of that game. We saw what Jeremy Johnson can do when he's not forced to throw deep into double coverage all the time, and we saw what happens when Carl Lawson's back. We saw what happens when he's back and he's able to anchor a defense that can corral a mobile quarterback like Kyler Murray.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. Barring disaster, obviously, we'll beat Idaho, become bowl eligible. Jahlani, I know you and I have talked off air about how we do have some confidence going into this game against Georgia this weekend. Any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think, we should still win this game. One thing I did not like about our defense, we still gave up a bunch of yards on rushing against Trey Carson. Georgia's quarterback situation is still really unclear. We're not sure who they're going to, put out there. But what they did do a lot of putting Sonny Michael in the Wildcat and get Keith Marshall a bunch of carries. So, they're still going to run the ball. Trey Carson had a big game against us. Kyler Murray, he did run around. But, whoever Georgia puts at quarterback is not going to be as mobile. So, there's a chance that they can still run the ball and move downfield on us. But, I think we should still win this game. That home field advantage does help. Georgia, their quarterback situation, it's so unclear that I don't think if it's a tight game, they have the quarterback play they need to win that game. Like you stated earlier, Carl Lawson makes a big difference. So that Texas A&M game, we got a lot of pressure back there. So if we have a new quarterback who's really unsure of what he's doing, and you have a lot of pressure coming from the defensive line and from the linebackers, it should be really good for Auburn, and we should definitely win this game.
Any other thoughts quickly on the Georgia game before we move on?
I kind of agree with what you said. I think finally this team's got that edge back. They've got that swagger back, something they lost earlier in the season with those close calls against Jacksonville State, Louisville, and getting smashed in the mouth by LSU. I think that win against A&M got everything back. They got those guys believing they can play Auburn football again. And I think this Georgia team, where the wheels have basically come off the wagon with Nick Chubb out for the season and the quarterback controversy, like you said, I think this game is ripe for the picking for Auburn. I think all the stars are aligning for them to be able to pull out a win and get that 7th win.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right, we move on to topic number 2. We stick with college football. We got 2 games to talk about here. What are your biggest takeaways from the Clemson-Florida State game as well as the Alabama-LSU games? Jelani, start us off on this one.
My biggest takeaway from the Clemson game, Deshaun Watson, he's a great quarterback. He threw for almost 300 yards. He ran for 100 yards. Clemson looks really strong. Dabo Swinney's doing a great job with that team. On the other side of the ball, their defense put a lot of pressure on Sean McGuire. Dalvin Cook did have a really good game. He's sneaking into this Heisman race. He's had a big year. He had a big year, and every game he's played since the suspension, he's done a really good job. You got to put him up there with Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, and I'm blanking on the last. Derrick Henry, yeah, Alabama. That's why.
There you go.
Thank you. But yeah, I think Clemson looks like a really strong team. Can't really take a lot away from Florida State because they did play a really tough game. It was really close at first, but Clemson was the better team. The LSU game, that front 7 is the front 7 of Alabama. They're very strong. Reggie Ragland, Shanahan, those guys, they look really, really tough. Leonard Fournette has been rolling through that schedule, running for 200 yards, running for 100 yards against everyone. They held him to 30 yards. That's amazing. Leonard Fournette has looked like a man among boys. The front 7 from Alabama looks really strong.
I'm going to say back to the Clemson FSU game. Starting off watching that game, I was, you really think like, oh, FSU's got this one, especially on that first carry that, Dalvin Cook had 75 yards for a touchdown. I mean, you look at that, and even though it's only at the beginning of the game, like that's very strong starting out. But then, Clemson's defense came back to like just completely shut them out. And, this is a big win for Clemson. I mean, they haven't beaten FSU since 2011, so, they got to be feeling pretty good coming off of this.
Yeah, I think this win really solidifies Clemson as the top team in the country. I think them and Bama are head and shoulders above everybody else in the country. And I think you said, Deshaun Watson proved himself against that game, in this game. Every national champion has one of those games where they have to grind out a win, one where it looks like they might lose. I think this was that game for Clemson. They've got a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. They've got the ACC championship that, by all accounts, they should win. They can basically waltz into the playoff, and they just had to get over this Florida State team, and they did that. So I think they've earned a lot of respect, and I think they've deserved the right to be the number 1 seed so far.
All right, we move on to topic number 3, and we have 3 games for you in our weekly game picks. First up, we have number 13 Memphis as they take on number 25 Houston. Sam, start us off in this one.
Well, Memphis had kind of a downer last week. They did lose, but they did beat Ole Miss early in the year. They punched him in the mouth. And I think that even though Memphis did slip up, Paxton Lynch is a phenomenal quarterback. He's going to be really he's been really highly taken up in the next NFL draft. I think he leads the Tigers to a win this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Memphis is going in this 8-1, trying to upset this 9-0 team, 9-0 Houston. So, I think with both these teams, it's really anything can go. But I kind of agree with you on that output of it. So,
I'm going with Houston. Navy, I know they were in the triple option, but they ran for 374 yards. At some point, you have to stop the run. Houston has 2 rushers with over 800 yards on this season. So they have a strong 1-2 punch. Coach Tom Herman, he has that team ready to play. I think Houston comes in, they're at home. Houston wins at home. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be high scoring, I believe, but I think Houston has the pieces it needs to beat Memphis.
All right, next game for you. Number 6 Baylor plays host to number 15 Oklahoma in Waco. College game day will be here. Big game in the Big 12. Sam, start us off again.
Well, we saw last week Baylor had to squeak out a win against Kansas State. They had to deal with Seth Russell going out for the year with a neck injury. Jarrett Stidham, the highly touted freshman quarterback, came in and performed very admirably against the Wildcats. I think that the coaches, Art Briles and his staff, had all the confidence in the world in him to unleash that offense, which they're so known for. I think they get it done against Oklahoma and Waco.
I have to agree with that. I think Baylor's going to take Oklahoma.
Again, I'm going against everybody else. Oklahoma, they have the top defense in the Big 12 this year. Last week, Jared Stidham, he had a great game, but he also played against the 9th best defense out of 10 teams in Kansas State. Going into Kansas State and going to Manhattan, that's a tough place to play. I mean, he gets to go home, but I think Mark Stoops and just has Oklahoma rolling right now. I think that with that defense and Baker Mayfield, quarterback in that offense, they're going to be really strong and really hard to beat. That one Texas game, they slipped up. They haven't looked the same. They've been really strong. I'm going with Oklahoma here. The #1 defense in the Big 12, number 16 in the nation. It's a tough defense.
All right, in our final game, after their big win over LSU, Alabama heads to Starkville to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Sam, once again, start us off.
Well, I think we all saw what Alabama can do last week. They held Leonard Fournette to 31 yards. They probably won't have any trouble corralling Dak Prescott, who's really trying to prove himself as a pocket passer for the NFL. I think that Alabama front seven is the best in the country, and Derrick Henry can't be stopped right now. Jacob Coker's kind of settled down as that quarterback. He's shown that he's lowered his propensity to throw a ton of interceptions. He's finding his groove in that offense. Lane Kiffin's finding more ways to use him. I think Alabama wins pretty comfortably in Starkville.
Yeah, I mean, with this huge win against LSU, Alabama pretty much clinched the SEC West, and they came off this big, really emotional victory. So, some people say that, hey, coming off that big win can sometimes end badly for the next weekend, but with the way they've been playing, I really don't see that happening for them this weekend. Are you going to disagree again?
I'm not going to disagree.
Okay.
I'm actually going with you guys.
All right.
I do think it'll be a closer game than expected. Mississippi State's offense does exactly what Bama has problems against. They spread the field. They have a quarterback that can move. So, that front seven is going to put a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott. But the thing is, he's a big body. He can run. So, if needed, he can pick up the hard yards. But like you said, I think Alabama's just a little too much for Miss State. I do see Alabama winning this game at Miss State. But I think it'll be a closer game than some expect.
All right. Those are your game picks. Now, coming up next, we play a fun game for you with our analysts. You don't want to miss it. This is AU Nation Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6.
Families come in all sizes and shapes. Sometimes your friends are your family by choice, or sometimes you're just stuck with Uncle Charles. But what we know is that you want to protect the people that are close to you. But the flu can unravel everything. Your flu vaccine protects you and your family. No matter what draws your family together, protect yourself. Protect your family. Everyone needs a flu vaccine.
Welcome back to AU Nation on Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6. I'm your host, Evan Blank. We're going to play a fun little game for you called Fill in the Blank, where our producer, happy birthday Jared Dillard, makes a pun out of my last name. Question 1, we have a video for you. Let's take a look.
We're gonna change it up tonight. I got a new one for y'all. I bet one of them.
All right, question number 1. Dabo Swinney is blank. Kristin.
Man, after watching that, I would say hype. I mean, if you just look at the way he's acting, he is just going all in. I mean, the excitement level, it's unreal. So, hype is definitely what I would use to describe him.
Jahlani.
Dabo Swinney is the man. He's having a good time. They're 8-0. They're winning games. He's dancing. It's just fun.
Sam.
I say refreshing. There's not too many coaches that are willing to just let loose and have fun in the locker room like he is. A lot of them are way too uptight.
All right, we move on. Question number 2, we've got another video. Let's take a look.
We'll do that a little bit. I'm just looking forward to hopping on the plane. Hopping on the plane with my wife. Can't believe I just said that. I looked right up at you and I said hopping on the plane with my wife flying back to Fayetteville. I'm out. You're out. Peace.
Okay. All right, question number 2. After that, Brett Bielema is blank. Kristin.
Well, I definitely have to say over-enthusiastic. Might have been a little slip of the tongue there, but, what he was thinking about and what came out, two different things there, so.
Jahlani.
He just his foot in the mouth. He just puts his foot in the mouth like all the time. You know, he just known for saying things he probably shouldn't say.
Sam.
I'd say unfiltered, kind of like what Jahlani said. He doesn't really give too much thought to what he's willing to say out loud.
There you go. All right, question number 3. We've got another video for you. Let's take a look at this one.
Last chance for Brandon Allen and the Razorbacks. 4th and 25. It's complete to Henry. Ole Miss knocks it away. Incomplete. No, correction. It's on lateral. Arkansas keeps it going. Collins is going to take it inside the 15, and he has a first down on the lateral.
All right, question number 3. The Arkansas-Ole Miss ending was blank. Kristin.
I gotta say, exhilarating. This is one of those plays when you're watching it, your heart is just racing because you're thinking, this is impossible. You think this is not happening, but you know, that was me at least when I was watching it.
Jahlani.
Miami-esque. You know, we saw 8 laterals in that one play, and it was just crazy. Didn't expect it to happen, and then one crazy lateral later, and Arkansas was off to a victory.
Sam.
I gotta say jaw-dropping and kind of head-scratching. The fact that Ole Miss had nobody ready to tackle him anywhere on that side of the field kind of blows my mind a little bit, honestly.
All right, final one here. Question number 4. We got a couple pictures for you this time. Let's take a look. They bring it in Tuscaloosa, we'll just say that. The only thing I can say about these college game day signs is blank. Kristin.
Witty, probably, I would say. You know, some of them are a little, I guess, a little on the snarky side a little bit, but when you read them, you can't help but laugh at some of these things. I mean, you know, you think, where do these people come up with these things? So, witty is definitely what I would say.
Jahlani.
Interesting. Some of them are really bad, but some of them are really good. It's just, they're interesting.
Sam.
I gotta say lackluster. I mean, some of those jokes are right there for the taking, but they could dig a little deeper and make some better ones out of that.
All right, there you go. Sam coming off the top rope on that one. All right, thanks to our analysts for your great vocabulary. Coming up next, though, it's the burning question. You don't want to miss that. This is AU Nation on Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6.
Boys will be boys.
Well, she was drunk.
Well, he was drunk.
She was asking for it. He warned her.
Not my problem.
Why doesn't she just leave? But he's such a nice guy.
He said he was sorry.
We don't talk about that. It's just the way people are.
We're never going to fix it.
No more excuses.
No more silence.
No more violence.
It's time to end domestic violence and sexual assault once and for all.
Welcome back to AU Nation on Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6. We've got all your student media groups ready to tackle this one big question. We call it our burning question, and here it is. Ray Rice and Greg Hardy. These are both NFL players who have ran into problems with the law. Recently, Greg Hardy has had problems with his current team, the Dallas Cowboys, and pictures from his domestic violence incident with his former ex-girlfriend have resurfaced. Ray Rice was shown in a domestic violence dispute with his then-fiancée. They later went on to go to counseling and marry afterwards. The question is, does the NFL do a good job at disciplining their players, and do these players deserve second chances? Kristin, start us off.
Well, let me just first by saying both these situations absolutely terrible, no matter you're a professional athlete or not. But you know, this is a pretty controversial topic on how the NFL disciplines. You know, like I would say these players are not above the law in any way. Like, when you look at these situations, like, if this happened to just an average citizen, like, they're going to be punished. And granted, like, you know, action was taken on these situations, but where I have problems with it is sometimes I feel like the NFL thinks they are above the law. And, you know, I know these are professional athletes, and I know this is what they do for a living, and they make a lot of money doing it. But at the same time, like, they don't deserve special treatment just because they're in a big business like this. So, you know, and as far as second chances go, I mean, I believe everybody deserves a second chance, but I don't know if I necessarily think that, you know, you should keep returning to the NFL, especially if this is something that keeps happening, or if you have something happening like this over and over again. So, you know, it's really up in the air. It depends on the player, depends on the situation that the player was involved with, but that's my honest opinion about it.
Jahlani.
I mean, I agree with a lot of what she's saying. I think the NFL does a bad job disciplining their players. It's just very inconsistent. Some cases you have 4-game suspensions for deflating a football. You know, you may get 1 game for a DUI, and that doesn't equal out to me. That doesn't make sense. I think they could do a much better job at disciplining the players. You know, Greg Hardy ended up sitting out most of last season, all except for 1 game because of his domestic abuse, and was suspended 4 games this season. So, you know, depending on the case, it's a case-by-case situation if they do a good job or not. I would like to see Greg Hardy pay more for what he did. Ray Rice still doesn't have a contract to this day for what he did, and Ray Rice has, you know, he said he made a mistake and wants to work with the NFL for domestic abuse awareness. You know, I think that Greg Hardy got off a little bit lighter than Ray Rice did, but I think that overall the NFL does not do a good job disciplining its players, and they could definitely do a better job.
Sam.
Honestly, I think you guys hit it on the head. I think the NFL honestly does a terrible job with disciplining players. They pick and choose their battles when it comes to discipline. Like, someone can wear the wrong color socks and they'll get fined a few $1,000s, but if you punch a woman, you'll only miss a few games. I think that is atrocious, and that needs to be fixed somehow. But as long as people keep coming back and watching these games and driving ratings, the NFL is not going to get rid of these storylines. They're going to keep them around. They're not going to do everything they can to the fullest extent of the law that's applicable in that situation, as long as they know people will keep bringing in money.
Any responses to the comments of your other panelists? Any of you?
I mean, I think we're pretty much all in agreement that the NFL just, you know, they don't do a very good job of disciplining. You know, I like what you said, how with different cases, you know, sometimes they get a DUI, they only miss 1 game, and then you know, something else minor happens and they miss a lot more games. So, you know, I think it's they need to prioritize how they're punishing these players for the incidents that they're getting involved in.
And this is for any of you. Is there anything you think that Roger Goodell could do better to better discipline these players? Jahlani, you're shaking your head.
I personally think Roger Goodell should just step away from disciplining players. You know, sometimes it seems like he has vendettas for certain players. I think there should be a neutral person that is not related to the NFL brought into the system that is sort of like a judge and jury to decide what's fair and what should be right. Roger Goodell, he should focus on maybe the financials parts of the NFL, but when it comes to discipline, I don't think he has done a good job at that at all, and he should bring somebody else in.
Honestly, I think you've had it right, but I think he should go one step further. I don't think Roger Goodell should be the commissioner of the NFL anymore. I think his track record this far has been terrible when it comes to discipline. There's been too many incidents and scandals in the NFL that he's proven to not handle correctly. He just went on a witch hunt on Tom Brady just for deflating footballs, and he barely gave a second thought to Greg Hardy punching a woman. I think that, honestly, he's lost the respect of most of the league and just the players in it and the fans outside of it, and I think he needs to go.
I honestly couldn't agree more with that. And I also, Jahlani, I like how you said to bring in someone completely different that's, you know, non-affiliated with the NFL, because then they're not going to have that, you know, necessarily that bias that might come with being a part of the NFL. Well, we might need this player here, so let's like think about how this situation's going to work out. And if you bring in somebody different, then, you know, you erase that problem. So.
All right. I know that's a controversial topic to tackle, and thanks to all of you for being good sports, and because that's definitely something that's, you know, big going on right now and certainly controversial. So thank you to all of you guys. You were great today. We'd love to have you back anytime. So thanks for all your great opinions today. All right, that's it for AU Nation today. Make sure to tune in next Wednesday at 4 p.m. on eagleeyetv.com. I'm your host, Evan Blank. Until next time, Auburn, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. just like when the Oakland Raiders drafted Jamarcus Russell. We'll see you next week. Eagle Eye TV, Channel 6.